So now there's a movement openly of black people who are openly love Trump, and I mean that happened before, such that I mean even the late David Carroll criticized people who are starting to get a little too excited. He called it booty twerking for Trump, as there were people doing kind of ridiculous stuff and taking over the top. But black folks. You gotta see if you could take that line and make it even more dope, or take that move and make it even more crazy. That's how it is. Well, so one of the things I was thinking about, because it's just sticking in my mind, is a guy who analyzes crime named Al Prophet. And maybe he thinks it's just like a funny irony that Giuliani gets locked up, this and that. But a lot of Trump haters, and really I don't even know if he really hates Trump. From what I've gathered, Al Prophet's one of these people with the Trump derangement syndrome. To the point that, he's one of the people who's called all the investigations like, this, that, and the other. And in the investigations, nothing happened. There was nothing there. There was no evidence. And so it really is actually kind of showing he's good at doing research, but it's clouding his judgment. And like everybody I've met who ended up just in hate mode all the time with the Trump, they never called anything correctly. Like from that point on, they would sort of call every event, they just every political anything, they would just get it wrong. And then on top of it, they started believing sources that they themselves would not have considered good sources, like CNN and MSNBC. They would totally believe them. And then also a lot of them started getting into the weird psychological stuff about Trump, that, Trump is like this and he's like that, rather than them starting, from the center outward and thinking, maybe I'm just very envious of this guy because his family was like, they were a really good family. They were a really good family, and they made it. And then his dad tested whether he could make it too by giving him a loan, and he made it. And I think really like how that's legitimately, like, unless you're totally cynical and are from a background of cynicism, mistrust, I think that's a big part of it. There's a lot of people I would associate closer with. I think that's what it is. It's the personality type that I associate with. People who come from low trust places, because I'm from San Francisco. It's a low trust environment. And so I think that's what that does that. Like, people have this cynical view, and they'll be like, the way his dad helped him out and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, but your dad's supposed to help you out. Like, your dad didn't help you out. And then there's that question. You're talking to somebody and you're realizing, wait, I don't think this guy's dad ever helped him or something. And which then that's real uncomfortable. Because you've gotten to the psychic core of it, No, this isn't a conversation about some blonde guy from New York. No, this is a conversation about how your family failed. And it was, and it did, okay, and you have to, and these are usually people that don't want to talk about the, women leaving families is key to them being ruined. They usually don't want to talk about stuff like that. They're also usually apologists for skirts. Women could do anything they want, and they're faultless. It's always up to men to try to keep them, But then, they've called some girl, a pretty bad name who's left them, very likely. They have a fiery history with some woman. A lot of people I've just noticed about people who really, Trump was living in the low rent district in their minds. Some people, it's just, there's like Al, he's so talented and that he's sitting there watching one of the greatest crime stories ever happen. He's watching how the FBI is exposing that they helped with, very likely, treason. That the top management of the FBI helped with treason. And then this is another one I'm blown away by how Al Prophet isn't seeing this. Okay, who remembers when the Russian gangsters started showing up in the 90s in your town? You just started to see these guys, started to hear about them, these Russians. And they all kind of liked looking a little gangstered up. They all liked that Dvory look. But then at some point, you actually have the experience of then seeing these guys who kind of look like the Russians, but they're different. And then you'll see on like the bumper of their expensive car a UKR sticker. And you're like, Ukraine? Like, no one ever heard of Ukraine in the 1990s. By the end of the 1990s, I was well aware that there were two mafias that apparently were the mafias of mafias. It was Albanians and Ukrainians. It wasn't until I read America's Nazi Secret by John Loftus that I found out, well, we recruited a bunch of people from Albania, or from the Albanian Nazis, and from the Ukrainian Nazis, it appears, to help with our anti-communist efforts. With the Albanians being the type that would have helped us with anti-communist efforts within the Ummah. And Turkey as well was a very anti-communist, viciously anti-communist. Now they were also anti-religion, which is another thing that actually, oddly enough, you do start to see the Ukrainians. When you look up the Azov Battalion, there's a whole section on how they have their own kind of spirituality. They have their own race spirituality lodges. This is very normal for these kinds of movements to sort of develop their own cultus of thinking. The example of Islamic fascism, actually, or movements that are tied to it historically, actually this would be important, is the Salafist movement. The Salafis, when you look them up, the Salafis, it's a school of thinking in Islam, but it got really popular by this kind of not really religious scholar who was into occultism. And in the 1800s, a bunch of Westerners thought he was just the bee's knees. And he was in a high society type of fellow, and very popular among kind of the proto-Marxist types because of his quote-unquote anti-colonialism. And him and what was it? Al-Banna of the Egyptian Muslim Brotherhood. These types of people were fusing political ideas with Islam that simply could not go together. And there were, for generations now, people have tried to within the Ummah, they've tried to deal with this. This is why jihadis are often said to not be real Muslims. There's actually a reason why people say that, is because what is commonly believed among Muslims versus what jihadis believe are very different. And yes, jihadis tend to be educated and heavily inculcated. So they've been sitting there having books read to them or reading books, and so that's why they believe what they believe, because they're into high theory, So this is all stuff that we were utilizing, it looks like, along with France and Britain, to keep the empire going. The empire, it could all go back to a republic. No one's ever done it. If there's any black people watching this, no empire has just said we must be a republic again, and has let go. Have you ever heard of somebody, have you ever heard of a gangster retiring? That's how the republic's been living for too long, and we all know it, and it disgusts us. This is what changed the right. When the right found out everything was for money and drugs, and then remember how we had to convince, the right had to convince other people on the right. Really nice roses. They were trafficking girls. Nobody believed it. Remember that none of us believed it. We didn't want to. It was too terrible. We wanted there to be just simply something that didn't make us scared. Because when you think that they would grab your own wife, your daughter, they would sell your mother, that scares you at an evolutionary level. And that's why everyone's so quiet. That's why everybody, and the only people fighting back now, as soon as they fight back, what happens? All the other crabs and sheep get agitated. Why are you listening to this guy, this blonde sheep? He doesn't know what he's talking about. There's no field. There's no field over there. No, if we climb over that butte there's not going to be a field. He says he's seen the field. No, it's not there. In fact, he's full of lies. He was sent here by the wolves. He's in a deal with the wolves. The wolves are over that butte. See, that's what it is. It's not that we're being kept on this side of the butte by the wolves. That's where we're at now. Everybody knows if we fight, we have to fight the wolves. And that scares a cowardly people. And that's what we become. Cowards. We won't even defend our women or our daughters. We'll blame one man. If you die, all of our sins will go away. And the warlords will just take care of us. When we recruited a man named Barbie, Klaus Barbie ended up becoming a key element in fighting communism for the CIA in South and Central America. In fact, he killed a man named Che Guevara. Klaus Barbie started the cocaine trade to the United States at the level that we understand it. So he was our boy, who was a former Nazi, and he liked torturing people. He was known for that. Probably is a big part of the start of the School of the Americas. And so at some point, there's really an issue of, this is just so embarrassing for the Bush family, who helped make that guy who he was and get the Pentagon to the level it is, make the swamp what it is, that there's too many Republicans who they don't want to cross the Bush family. They know what could happen. And then if it's not the Bush family, it's the big guy. The big guy. Isn't it just so Democratic Party to have such a cringe way of so gangster? And that was the thing, is the Bidens were always connected to Delaware Irish mob, supposedly. But it's just to see. It's also this thing, not looking back in anger. That people have to figure this out for themselves. Not a single thing that Trump was accused of panned out. The Paul Manafort thing, that's like the weirdest flex, the weirdest like the weirdest lie. I'm grasping at straws flex. I don't really tell the truth flex. I'm trying desperately to make this a thing flex. And so it's this issue of people who don't like Donald Trump. They're still mad at Rudy Giuliani. It is a thing of, well, then I hope wherever you live is nice and safe, because I mean the Democrats are just going to ruin everything. I don't know how you don't get that. I just really don't understand how you don't get that. But I think a lot of Black Americans are starting to get it. They're starting to realize, like, this isn't going to work. This isn't going to work. This is where they're looking at the immigrants and stuff, and they're going, that they really are going to replace us. This wasn't a lie. They're really going to replace us. They're already trying to get these people badges and jobs and housing. Badges. People in Chicago know what they're like. Wait, these people are going to be made into police officers. And it's Donald Trump who's corrupt. It's Republicans who are corrupt. Ah, so good. The irony's so good. It's just, yeah. All right, later on.